What are the long-term effects of porn addiction on individuals and relationship? I realize that there's sometimes guys that are addicted that I learned that literally they have trouble like getting a boner when the real deal is there and the girl's pretty and everything, and supposedly some guys like really have trouble. And in my head I'm like, did you like brainwash yourself so much with these 5 girls videos and shit like that, and now this one girl is not enough in real life?
Well, think about it. We understand a couple things. Number one, we like to think that our brains process imagery very well. They don't. Photography has only been around about 125, 130 years. Moving pictures have only been around about 100 years. And our brains have not evolved to process this imagery as much as we'd like to think it has. You think back, your great great grandfather, probably was at the end of his life seeing TV or movies
Mm-hmm.
for the first time. They haven't been around a long time. The brain hasn't evolved. The brain also can't always tell the difference between black and white and color. The brain also can't always tell an image that's in front of them on a screen versus something that's there in real life. And so this is, you take this, plus you take the idea that we know that um, you get the biggest dopamine hits when you see new imagery. Now imagine yourself with your wife or your girlfriend for 5, 10 years. How many hundreds of times have you seen her naked? How many, hundreds of times have you had sex with her? You know how that movie ends, but if you jump online, you can find something you don't know how it ends. And if you're satisfying yourself to it, you are setting a bar very high for yourself to be able to ejaculate. So that's why a lot of men experience what's known as porn induced erectile dysfunction, PIED, where they cannot participate with a partner in real life, but that they can absolutely still use pornography. Aside from that, both in men and in the women that I talk to who are porn addicts, their sex drive just lowers and lowers and lowers because they are going after these brain chemicals. And this is very true of most addicts.
Yep.
Ask a heroin addict how much sex they want to have. They don't. Ask a food addict how much sex they want to have. They don't. And what's ironic is that if you are a sex addict, or I should probably say intercourse addict, you could have the most beautiful, smart, funny woman in the world that you are seeing that is in bed next to you, and you will still sneak out at night and go and have dangerous sex with a risky partner in a risky place because that's what gives you your chemicals. That's what you're after. And that's why I have to keep pounding this idea back to the partners, is that this doesn't have to do with sex. This doesn't have to do with nudity. This has to do with getting those brain chemicals created in the mind, because that's where the real addiction is. And when it comes to those brain chemicals, anybody, man or woman, will lie, cheat, steal, deceive, do whatever they need to do to get to those chemicals. Yes, each addiction has its own side effects. If you're a gambling addict, you'll probably end up bankrupt long before you are, a porn addict ends up bankrupt. Every addiction has its own unique set of symptoms and its own unique set of results, but what's going on in the brain is uniform throughout all addiction.
uh, that is such a revelation for me since the beginning. We're talking, so it's really it all has to do with these gases that we're feeding ourselves in our brain there, because we get like this little high of seeing this new girl naked getting fucked in a video, and then we're like, oh, you're not primed enough, so you're gonna go want to find another, and it just keeps going. So it's like that hit of addiction. I was in addiction, and like you said, I was so high on freebase and cocaine there. I didn't care not see anybody. I did not give a fuck. I don't care. I don't care about people right then and there, because you're so high and you're so in your addiction and you're already isolating yourself. Well, the last thing you want is other people. So you're just giving yourself even more reasons as well there.
Well, and let's be honest, if you watch 15 videos a day, every day, how many breasts, how many vaginas, how many penises are you seeing in a week? How many are you seeing in a year? How many are you seeing in 5 or 10 years? You know, it's just body parts.
Mm-hmm.
There's 8 billion people in this world. We come from different countries. We have different skin color. We have different political and religious beliefs. What's the one thing we all have in common? We're born naked and we're naked under our clothes. When you think about it, nudity is one of the least unique things on earth. And I don't care whether you're looking at a white girl, a black girl, an Asian, a
Mm-hmm.
Latino. I don't care what the guy is. I don't care if they're a little heavier or a little skinnier, tall or short. Naked people basically look the same. And so it's not that an addict really likes breasts or really likes asses more than the next person who isn't an addict but uses. It's that they are addicted to those chemicals in the mind, and they have learned that this is the vehicle upon which they can get these chemicals. Like I said, for some it's food, for some it's gambling, for some it's video
Mm-hmm.
games, for some it's drugs, whatever it may be. We learn at a young age, hey, this thing solves my problems, or we tell ourselves it does that and don't realize the problem it creates until later.
Do you think the media has something to do with sexualizing fucking everything? Like you can't even look at a commercial of yogurt and not look at it sexually. They put the camera like this up close to the girl, and you just see her licking that spoon. You're like, why? And then you see a shampoo commercial. It's like, the hair. You're like, what kind of shampoo does this? It's incredible everywhere, everywhere. Do you think that that has something to do to make it normal for kids and people?
Perhaps I think it is overwhelmingly part of the society, but you can look through history, and there are times like, in the Roman Empire, or even back to the 20s and 30s, where there are spikes in sexual appetite and spikes in how liberal people are. I think we're seeing one of those spikes now because of the technology that's available to us, really for the first time. But ultimately, sex has always sold, and
Mm-hmm.
that's because sexuality is normal. It's normal for somebody going through puberty to be curious about what sex looks like, to be interested in what the opposite gender looks like. You can go back to cave paintings. You can go back to like Egyptian pottery,
Yeah.
and there is stuff painted on there that is absolutely pornographic. What many still consider the best guide for sexual positions is thousands of years old and comes from super conservative India, known as the Kama Sutra. And so this has always been part of society. And it's not that sexuality is a bad thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's a wonderful thing. It's part of what makes us who we are. But when that becomes toxic, when that starts to create, the brain problems, that's when it's negative. And we're seeing this explosion of it in the last 20 years because, when I was a kid, the toughest part about pornography was getting
Finding it,
your hands on it. And
finding it.
now
Yeah.
we give every kid a smartphone at 10 years old and say, good luck, junior, and have a good day at school. So now there's no barrier to getting it. That's why we're seeing younger and younger ages using it, younger and younger addicts using it, and more people than ever. I saw a statistic recently that said, and this isn't addicts, but of men who use the internet in this world, 91.5% look at porn at least once a month. Perhaps even,
Wow.
so that's more than 9 out of 10. Perhaps even more interestingly is that 60.2 82% of women who use the internet look at porn at least once a month. So
Wow.
that's 3 out of 5 women who are looking at pornography regularly. So just that many people using it is going to create more addicts. But because, again, the taboos, no one wants to admit that they're looking at people doing sexy things. And let's also admit that 90% of the time, masturbation goes with it. People don't want to admit they do that. So we've got this, serious health issue on the horizon that nobody wants to talk about because, ooh, it's taboo. Ooh, it's icky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at naked people doing naked things. That's not me. Well, the reality is, it is for 9 out of 10 guys. It is for 3 out of 5 women. We need to grow the fuck up and start talking about this stuff.
What preventive measures can we take to protect the next generations of falling into porn addiction?
I believe that porn addiction is not the sex talk. And that's what a lot of parents make the mistake of believing. To
Oh
me,
yeah,
to
I get
me,
it.
porn is more like the don't do drugs talk, is like the don't smoke cigarettes talk. It's, you can start it very age appropriate, very young. At 5 years old, you can tell your child, you don't ever let anybody take your picture with your clothes off, and you don't ever take a picture of someone else with their clothes off. And then when they start school, if somebody has a phone or somebody has a tablet and they show you pictures of naked people, either go tell a teacher or tell mommy and daddy, because, you're not supposed to see this when you're a little kid. If you want to see it when you're older, that will be your decision. Just like if you want to drink beer, that will be your decision when you're older. But here in our house, we want to keep you safe, so we don't allow looking at that stuff. And I believe you can introduce a little
Mhm.
bit more, to the point of 12 and 13-year-old boys should be told about porn-induced erectile dysfunction. That basically, if you use too much of this stuff, your penis is going to break. And I don't think that 12 and 13-year-old boys, they're not thinking long term.
Mhm.
They just want a girlfriend. They want
Yeah.
someone's hand to hold. They want someone to kiss. But you can let them know that, when you're 17, 18, 19, no girl will want to be with you if your penis doesn't work.
Mhm.
And this is how you avoid having that happen. I think we need to be honest about this stuff. I'm sorry that in 2024 and from here on out, parents have to deal with this stuff, but it's a changing world. My dad tells stories of growing up in the 1950s, having to do air raid drills and hide under his desk because they had to practice the nuclear war coming. And we don't do that anymore.
No.
Times change, and we're in a time right now where we really need to start educating about this stuff, and not just saying this is someone else's problem, or these
Mhm.
are bad people, these are gross people who do this, because we did this with opiates 30, 40 years ago. We knew there was an opioid problem in the late 60s.
Mhm.
Um, and we did nothing about it. And through the 80s, you had Nancy Reagan saying, just say no. And we got this look at drug users, especially opiate users, as being from the wrong side of the tracks, as being the kind of disgusting people who we don't want to associate with. And the reality is, these days, almost everybody has that one person in their family or knows somebody who's struggling with opiates. If you recall, prior to the pandemic, the US government suddenly started caring because it became popular, but it was a very reactive
Mhm.
type of
Exactly.
stance. We should have been doing this back
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the 80s and 90s, dealing with the opiate problem. Instead, we waited till the 20 teens. Well, I worry that this is going to happen with pornography too, that it's going to be 20, 30 years before someone in government says, hey, maybe we need to deal with this problem. Maybe it's not just perverts. Maybe it's not just sickos. Maybe it's anybody. And I can tell you, having been to rehab, and I can tell you, helping people as a coach every day, Nobody is immune from pornography. It's like cigarettes, it's like drugs, it's like drinking, it's like food. Anybody can become an addict. Young, old, male, female, rich, poor, anybody can become an addict. And if you think you fit some demographic where you can't be an addict, you are dead wrong and you are in denial.